Welcome to Language Surfers Podcast, a space with fresh waves for the mind, dedicated to create a platform where professionals from both language industry and academia can share their professional experiences, and where we also explore different career paths at different stages. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Language Surfers Podcast. My guest for today is Dona Atanasovska. I'm really excited to share her story with you. I'm sure that you will find a lot of inspiration. And without further ado, I just want to welcome you, Dona, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So Dona Atanasovska was born in Macedonia, and she's currently living in US. But before we go into her professional journey, I do like to also put the highlight on the personal story. And this is something that I like about her story, and I identified somehow with her in the sense that she was born in Europe, in Macedonia, but then when she was a kid, she moved to the United States. So I'm a bit interested in how was this cultural adaptation, the shift from one country to the other, from one continent to the other. And then further on, we will continue with your professional journey. So Donna, if you can tell us about your relationship with languages and moving countries and continents. How was the start?
For me, it was easy because I was 7. So I moved to the US within like the beginning of second grade. So I only did first grade there. And then I started second grade there, but then we moved to the US. I think it was in October of 97, a long time ago. So it was easy. I do remember being in ESL. It's a program for English as a second language for kids learning English. So I got to make friends there within that program because we were all learning English. But I would say it was much easier than people I met later on that were coming at 14, 15, or even the students that I met that were like studying abroad that were here in the US during college. So it was definitely easier for me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that as a kid we have a much greater capacity to adapt, right? And to make new friends than as maybe teenagers or adults.
Yeah, definitely.
And how often do you travel to Macedonia? Do you still keep in contact with the relatives in Macedonia?
It was easier for me to go back before I had a family. I haven't taken my daughter yet. She's 4, but I'm eager to take her. And I mean, she was born during COVID, so that kind of put a different spin on things just because when she was born, we couldn't travel. She didn't see people for like the first 3 months, and her contact with everyone was so limited at the beginning. So yeah, I definitely want to take her, but I haven't been back since 2016.
Yeah. And can I ask, are you willing to share your Macedonian culture and language with your daughter? Or
Yes, so she understands everything, and my mom lives close and she teaches her everything as well, and she's able to talk to her and teach her Macedonian. I try, but I honestly speak way more English, but she definitely understands everything. And then I gave her a Slavic name, you could say. I named her Mila, so yeah, just to keep that there.
yeah, that's great. And I think that's one of the benefits of having people from, different
Hmm.
cultures and languages, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much for sharing this personal story. And now if we move into your professional career, one of the things that I really liked about your career when we discussed it, when we started to be workmates, is the fact that you have a high interest in your academic background. You have started a PhD,
Mhm.
and you are also collaborating, you are also collaborating with some universities. But at the same time, you work in the private sector, right? And this is one of the
Yes.
topics that I really like about, the idea of the podcast to see how we can bridge academia and the industry. And I think your profile definitely suits there. So, how did you decide to pursue a PhD? And if you can tell us a bit more about your PhD, and then we see how you dance, if I can use this word, between industry and academia.
Sure. So I always knew I wanted to study languages just because I was a Macedonian native, but that language has so many contact languages there. And I feel like I could understand parts or I don't know, like 30, 50, 60% of all of those. And then when I came here, I learned English. And then I think it was in seventh grade, they started showing us Spanish, French, German. And I really loved Spanish. So I continued to take Spanish. And honestly, I was just taking Spanish at that point because I liked it. And it was so much easier for me to learn than well, a lot of the other subjects where I wasn't interested. So I continued Spanish and I took it as like a dual degree for my bachelor's. And then when I went back for my master's, I was like, okay, let's see what I can do with Spanish linguistics, culture, and literature and everything that they have. So I just continued and I got a scholarship to be a graduate assistant, which is teaching one or two courses per semester at a university. And then I did that and I continued my PhD, and that was like a scholarship to get a PhD. So I did all the coursework. That part was easy. But then once I had my daughter, writing became a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And how do you manage, as you say, your motherhood with writing a thesis, being a corporate employee?
Yeah. I was also a project manager since 2011, and I've been in localization. I worked at a small, I think it would be called like a boutique
Mm-hmm.
agency.
Mm-hmm.
So when I worked there, that was, I feel like a lot more difficult than working for a major localization
Okay.
company because it over there, like you were a project manager by title, but you did everything. Whereas in the bigger ones, you have people that help you with vendors, whether it's called community management, vendor management.
Mm-hmm.
You have different teams that you collaborate with. So I really enjoyed that. And I think that's why I stayed in the private sector as well, because I get to work with languages. I think if I hadn't had as much luck with localization finding that way, if like I got my PMP, but if I was in a different industry, I think after like 6 months or a year, I would have lost interest.
Okay, so it's languages and cultures that really keep you in the industry,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Great. And uh, have you finished your PhD or you're still uh, writing the thesis?
No, I have two chapters. I still need to. So I'm right there.
And do you feel like this is an extra effort? Do you feel tired? When you feel tired, um, do you take breaks? How is it impacting your PhD schedule, to say so?
Oh, it's definitely the fact that I think like once my daughter was born, like if she gets sick or if something happens, then I have to take a break. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really take breaks. I don't intentionally want to take a break. For example, I have like 5 pages per day as my goal. But
Mm-hmm.
if something happens, I have to put that aside for the week or 2 weeks, depending on what she catches from school, and then
Mm-hmm.
I continue. So
Okay. And by when do you expect to finish your PhD? Do you have a strict deadline, or if can you explain a bit how is the PhD program?
Here it's, I believe, 7 years that they give you.
Okay.
The thing that I did well was I finished the coursework within a year and a half.
Okay.
That could have taken me 3 to 4. So I got lucky there. But then now the other half after the qualifying exams is where it's more difficult for me because you're completely independent. You're not going to classes. It's not within your schedule. You just have to focus and do it on your own. I try to keep my PhD away from everything else, so I do it as kind of like my hobby or extracurricular activity. That's how I consider it when I have to write because I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. I have to do it now, and I try to do it like later in the day or at night, so it doesn't impact anything else like that my daughter has going on or that I have to do for my other for my job. So I try
Mm-hmm.
to keep it that way, but then if she gets sick or if I don't know, there's a game or some sport she's interested in, then I have to put it on hold. So yeah, it's definitely harder now than it was before to write.
Yeah, so you have to constantly check your priorities, right?
Yeah, I just try to juggle everything and keep it in place, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think definitely that the project management role definitely suits you, right? Both in the
Yeah,
professional and in personal life. And
definitely.
with without getting away from the PhD, so normally um, there are many people that pursue a PhD with the aim to stay in the academia. What's the goal for you to have this PhD? Do you intend to stay in the academia? Are you fine in the private sector, but you just wanted to have this PhD as a personal goal? What's the motivation to do a PhD in your case?
Initially, it was to stay in academia, but in the US, there's like a limited number of jobs each year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a part of the MLA, the Modern Language Association, where I get to see all the jobs posted. And there's a really low number compared to all the graduates that finish each year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what made me step out. And there's also like the unknown of where you'll get hired. And I d- I'm gonna be 35 next week. I don't want to move around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what pushed me away. But I've been lucky enough to keep a course going like every semester, every other semester. I still teach and it's like my hobby. Like I said, I enjoy it. I love it. But I also don't want to move around and look for jobs later on. I'm really happy in the private sector.
Because it gives you the stability that you need, right?
Yes, it's the stability, and then it's also like the growth and being able to achieve things over a certain period of time as opposed to looking for jobs and moving around and not being sure of what's going to happen with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And was it difficult for you to step into the industry? I mean, considering that you have an academic background, that you're a PhD candidate, it's challenging for people with this profile to step into the industry. How was it in your case?
I think I got lucky because I started working in localization in 2011. And
Mm-hmm.
even though that was a really small agency and we worked on specific languages more than like a huge number of languages like we do here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it it that definitely helped me. And then once I did that for a long time, that was, I think, probably my hardest job just because you had to do everything on your own. There were 5 to 10 people there, and you didn't have all the resources you have at larger localization companies. So I did that for 10 years. And then once I had my daughter, I knew I couldn't keep working there just because of all the time it needed and everything that had to be put in. And I was constantly either on my phone or talking to vendors throughout the night if I needed someone for a rush job or something. So it got to be really chaotic. But I'm lucky I had that because I never took a break from the industry.
Yeah, and definitely when you have to handle multiple uh, tasks in the end, right? Maybe it's
Hmm.
not only very, very specific to your role. You get the chance to see the global perspective, to understand the challenges, to understand where you can improve, what you can do better. So I think
Yeah.
that whatever challenges us, makes us grow in the end.
Definitely. Yeah. I definitely think that that helped. And it helped me with my current career because now I get to appreciate everybody and everything they do to help within like a project. You don't do everything on your own.
Definitely. You see much more collaboration. You've got more resources because you are in a bigger company, to say so.
Hmm.
And about project management. So this is the role that you've chosen in the private sector. Can you tell us about your certification because you are already a certified project management professional from the Project Management Institute?
Hmm.
When and how did you decide to get this certification? Was it after you were in the industry, or was it before getting into the industry?
No, so I've only had that for I think about 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I decided I didn't want to work in the small agencies anymore, I looked around and I saw on LinkedIn that most of the bigger ones were looking for that certification. So I
Mm-hmm.
bought the book. I ordered it off Amazon. It's called the PMBOK, I think. Mhm. And I did some like online tests, like pre-tests to see how much I remembered and I knew. And then I think like a couple months later, I took the test and I passed, and it definitely helped me because I went from working in like a tiny agency to working in a bigger one. And then now I work in one of the best, biggest ones. So it really worked out with that.
Yeah, so would you recommend it? to anyone working in the with the project management role?
Yes, I definitely recommend it because it helps you kind of navigate how you should handle certain situations, whether it's a difficult project or there's an issue with the client, there's an issue with the vendor. It helps all around. I recommend it. The only strange thing that happened with that was once I got it, I had like recruiters from really different industries contacting me, and I was like, why? Why would they contact me? I mean, I know I had that certificate, but it was like construction companies building houses and really different things. I was like, oh no, I don't want to try something that different at this point. I just wanted to stay in localization and see like how much I could grow there.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of a PMP certification because it's not specific to a targeted industry, right? It prepares
Mhm,
you for the general, right? As if you run a translation project or if you are the project manager to build, I don't know, an airport, for example, right? So
mhm.
that's why I think that having this certification helps you, even sometimes if you want to decide to switch the industry, because the knowledge is there.
Definitely. Yeah, and I would recommend it for people that are not sure because
Mm-hmm.
I think it could definitely help guide you. And I mean, if you get three different offers from three different industries and you're not sure where you want to stay for like a recent college grad, for example, that can kind of help them decide if they get to see three different sectors.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that the PMP exam is not that easy. I mean, there's a lot to study, especially I think there are also some criteria uh, to be able to enroll, right? Can you give us some details about the exam, the structure, how much effort did you put into it? Was it because you mentioned a couple of months, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember any tips and tricks or for anyone who would be interested to take the exam?
The exam, I think if you go through the book and take a couple of the practice exams, I don't think it's incredibly difficult, but it is, it's timed.
Mm-hmm.
So practicing definitely helps because if you run out of time, then you're not going to get your points for a certain section. So I think practicing will make a huge difference. But if you've taken one of the courses, because it does require the training,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember I think his name was Joseph. It was on Udemy where I
Mm-hmm.
took the training, and I think that was 40 hours.
Yeah, I think there's a requirement of a minimum 35 hours project management when you submit um, your interest to be examined.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I don't know. I keep thinking it was 40, maybe with all the login and stuff, it was 40. But once you complete that, and then if you take a practice exam, I think it helps. But right now, I've seen universities are offering project management courses. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
students coming out that are looking to go into the field, if they already have that background, I didn't at all. But
Mm-hmm.
if they already have those courses, or if they're currently studying, and they're not sure, maybe they can kind of enroll in those to help them later on.
Yeah, so definitely. It's great to see that universities are supporting with,
Hmm.
these practical type of courses or, preparing students for certifications that support your career in the professional, I mean, in the private sector, right? So I think that's great to see as a support from the academia.
Yeah, definitely. I was glad to see that that keeps coming up now, like the project management courses. And even when I was looking where to do the training, I had a couple universities email me. So there's a lot out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's great that I think one of the benefits of the PMP is that it's globally recognized. It's not,
Hmm.
I know there's another certification more recognized to say so in Europe, but definitely PMP is a globally recognized certification. So it doesn't limit you geographically to say so.
Hmm. Yeah.
And um, getting back to your role as a project manager and what you learned from the PMP experience, do you think that it helped you not only switch from a small type of company to a corporate company to a bigger one, but in terms of knowledge, do you feel more? confident? Do you think that it was a lot of information? Because as we said, PMP prepares you for any type of project, from a small one to a big one. But do you feel like it helped you, or do you feel that the fact that it covers such a big variety of projects, it's not that helpful for the localization industry, to say so?
No, I think it's definitely helpful because like the outline skeleton, however you want to call it, is
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
and addressing problems and fixing them in a timely manner, everything is there. It helps within localization because we follow the same structure at the end of the day. And then within the project management studies, one of the things they mention is that not every project's the same. They're not cookie cutter. And that definitely applies to us and localization because they're all so different. You get different language requests, different types of files from different sectors. Like we work with life science, we
Mm-hmm.
work with education, so many different things. So, yeah, that definitely helped with being able to navigate that. And I think it also helped me with client communication a lot.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. And after you get the certification, do you need to do anything else? Is there a renewal period, or once you get it, it's just that you have it and that's it?
No, it needs to remain in good standing. So there's these things called PDUs. So
Mm-hmm.
for professional development, you have to continue your education. And I've done, I think, 15, but I need 60 at the 4-year mark. So I have a year and a half to keep going. I need to work on those.
Yeah, so every 3 years or every 4 years, you have to renew your certification, right?
Yes, I think it's every 4. I
Mm-hmm.
could be
And
wrong though.
yeah, and you have to demonstrate that you are you keep learning anything that is related to project management, and that you have a number of credits or professional development units, right? They request.
Yes, and then within there, it's kind of like a network. Like the Project Management Institute is like kind of a network where you can add different project managers and kind of talk about different topics. And they offer different training seminars and different things that you can be a part of throughout. And a lot of the trainings that I did are there from them. So
Mm-hmm.
I was focusing on AI over the last year, so that's what I did most of my trainings with. But I'll see what else there is for the remaining 45 hours or 45 PDUs to see what we can do. But yeah, that has to stay in good standing. And then I make sure like my title, the place that I work at, everything else is up to date. So they know that I'm still in the industry and I want to be in good standing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that the fact that you can be in contact with other project managers, that's, as you well said, Project Management Institute works as a network. You can connect with others and share from
Hmm.
your experience. I think that's a great opportunity, right? It's not just a diploma or a certification, but it's an entire network that you have access to.
Yes, and it helps.
Challenging part of your role. So the goods and the bads.
Um, I think I stayed a project manager because I always saw there was a lot more good than bad. But
Uh-huh.
I like talking to clients. So like right now at the senior level, I talk to clients all day pretty much. That's my favorite. I like going to the meetings with them. I like having that connection. And then when I have to train on new types of projects, like I did earlier this year, I really like training other project managers because it kind of feels like working in academia. So
Mm-hmm.
I like
Exactly.
doing that part as well. And then I don't get to talk to vendors as much as I used to now because we have a whole team for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I like when I do, I think that's like a nice change throughout the day. And then my favorite part is looking at the project like before the project manager check when you see how everything came together and you're comparing where we started to what came out. That's probably the best part of project management.
Yeah, and what's the challenging part?
I think the challenging part is you never know what to expect. In one way, it's good. In one
Mm-hmm.
way, it's sometimes like, we plan each project. If I have 6 to 8, it'll be like, okay, 1 hour, 1.5 hours. But sometimes one will have something totally explode and you dedicate the entire day to that one. So that's probably the most challenging part.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, even if you spend a lot of time in planning the project and you think that you've got the perfect planning, there's something else that pops up and, makes
Hmm.
you plan something. There's
Yeah,
even a
deadline
tiny
gets
risk there.
missed. Yeah, we have to rush and fix it. Yeah, there's definitely challenges, but it's what keeps us going.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. If we think about your academic background, you said languages and cultures, and this is what you really like in the localization industry. What would be your mm one of the, I don't know, maybe two or three pieces of advice you would give either to your younger self or to people that are looking into joining the localization industry? Would you change
For the
anything in your career?
for the localization industry, I would advise them to make sure they know what they like about it. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I work in academia as well, so I always liked e-learning and I've
Mm-hmm.
focused a lot on e-learning projects over the past 3, 4 years. Um, I think they have to find their area of what they really want to work with within localization and to make sure that localization is what they're interested in. Because I have seen a lot of people come in and then they think like, oh, I never studied German or I never studied Hindi and they lose interest. But I
Mm-hmm.
think of it as much more than that. I didn't study those, but I still would like to see that how that project comes together. And if it's an e-learning course, I watch the course at the end and make sure everything sounds great. And yeah, so, but I think that's where a lot of people lose interest. So they have to make sure that that's really what they're interested in from the beginning. Or, I mean, like some people decide that it's not and they step out, but that's the biggest challenge, I think, for staying in localization is just making sure you know what it is that you like and focus on that over time and see how it grows.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And apart from the certification of PMP, which definitely is something that you recommend, are there any specific books that maybe you have read either about project management or, industry related or just simple books that have impacted your professional career?
Um, so for my PhD, I did a lot of research on books that had Spanish and English code switching.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of those. I spent years looking for those, and the way Spanish has been included within English books, and now they're read in high schools and middle schools. That fascinated me for so long because, as you've seen, Spanish US has become like its own language that's
Yeah.
requested from us. So just to see that growth, fascinated me, and I used those books for my dissertation and articles and things like that. But as far as localization, I definitely focus more on articles and I've read articles. And then professionally, I read like the motivation books, like The Mountain Is You. And those ones I feel like are the main books that kept me going to like refer back to, okay, let's see what I can do and to keep this going and kind of stay positive throughout the day.
But
Mhm.
yeah, as we get closer to the end of the interview, is there anything else that you would like to share with us from your professional or personal career that you think either it challenged you a lot, eh, something that maybe was a turning point, or any other suggestions for anyone who wants to join the industry or who's doing a PhD and at the same time working in the industry?
Deciding whether I was gonna stay to try to become a professor full time or leaving was my biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But then COVID came around and I focused on e-learning and I taught online courses and I feel like that helped me more with project management. So I just went along with it.
Uh-huh.
But that was the most challenging. And I think it kind of like it was a natural choice for me to stay within the industry after everything that happened and seeing the limited jobs there are. But if somebody is super eager to stay within academia, I would encourage them to stay because there are still jobs. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, like any other industry, there's shifts and things that change over time. But they both help one another. So, or if there's somebody that wants to do both, like I'm currently doing, I think they both help. So if you want to stay in both, I think you should stay in both. And even though I teach one course once in a while, it still helps me stay connected and see students and things like that. So Yeah, I would just encourage people to follow what they think is right and do what they like. And at the end of the day, or love, if you love it, it's all worth it.
Yeah, and it's not impossible to be in both in academia and industry, right?
No, it's not impossible. I mean, like I've taught Spanish for I think 7 years total if you add up the semesters.
Hmm.
And now when I do it, it's so easy, but it helps me get like the contact with students and get to know them and talk to them. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate your presence here and sharing your experience. And yeah, let's keep in touch and see how it's going.